Welcome to episode 37 of the Non-Fun Gerbils podcast. I'm Luke.
And I am George.
And we are delighted to be here. Today we are joined by Conlan Rios of the revolutionary platform ASYNC.ART, where you can design your own programmable and interactive NFTs, generative collections, and music. Check Conlan out at the Non-Fungible Conference in Lisbon next week. That's starting the 4th of April. We will also be there and giving away special Lisbon NFT gerbils and stickers to anyone who comes and finds us. We'll be wearing a variety of gerbils t-shirts, of course. In other news, our new Non-Fun Gerbils contract is almost ready, so we will imminently be minting gerbils again, and creative competitions will resume without the crippling F-gas costs. So that is something to look forward to. We are very excited about this, and we are very excited to present to you this conversation with Conlan. We hope you enjoyed as much as we did.
Welcome to the Non-Fun Gerbils podcast, the show about digitally scarce gerbils, non-fungible assets, and the growing decentralized economy.
So, Conlan, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You are the founder of ASYNC.ART, which is a revolutionary platform for making programmable NFTs. Could you tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll get onto async and sort of learn all about that?
Yeah, sure. So my background's in mobile and game development. So I'm in the Bay Area, California. So I've been working at various mobile startups before this. Before Async, I was working at a company called Osmo, which was like a ed tech learning company. And we made like learning games for kids for mobile and tablets, but it would use like computer vision technology. You have like a little mirror you'd clip onto the top of the iPad or device, and it would like relay the camera feed into the game. So kids would be playing with the games with like physical manipulatives, like these, like Tinker Toys or like Legos and these sort of toys. It's kind of like a way to add healthy screen time back to these games that kids are playing in the schools. So that was what I was doing before Async. But then cryptocurrency was always like a side fascination, obsession. And then NFTs just kind of was like the final straw, had to push me into it.
It was the NFT emergence that made you decide to jump ship on mobile gaming.
Yeah, I've been building like in my off time, like, things for the DeFi community. Like I built some things for like Compound and Uniswap, some of the prediction markets like Veil and Augur, which were early on. So I think that was enough for like a hobby. But then the NFT community just brought like the human element into it, like collecting art, meeting artists, doing these like Metaverse meetups and stuff like that added like a whole new dimension to it. And that's where I was like, okay, I want to do this full time. How do I do it?
Oh, amazing. So how did you go about creating Async? How did that idea come about?
Sure. So it was kind of a slow moving, I guess, snowball. Before then, like about 6 months leading up to Async, I'd just been collecting a lot of NFTs. This was like in 2019. I was in the Metaverse and Cryptovoxels. That was when it was, really getting big. Buying up land in Cryptovoxels, then like buying art on these other platforms, and then going back and building galleries to display the artwork, and just kind of going through that loop and just growing the space. I think I collected a lot of NFTs, and while I loved everything that I bought, like I did feel like, okay, like these are all like art pieces that could have existed before blockchain. Like they're art that could have been on your Instagram feed or your DeviantArt or Behance. And they were using NFTs to like monetize, which is great for the creator, great for the collector, but it wasn't like 21st century art. And I'm a huge cyberpunk fan. I like weird cyber, like I love drones, AI, all this stuff. I want the future to be weird and crazy. And so I'm looking at this art, I'm like, I think artwork needs to be like living and dynamic and fluid and needs to be changing and doing things and reacting to you. And also maybe it was in part because I was working with, at Osmo, and, the whole thing about there was like, reach into the screen and, manipulate the games. So my concept over time was like, what if there was an art piece where I could reach into the art piece and like own a part of the artwork and control it? So like initially I had this idea for like, I'm a gamer. So like I had this idea for like a fantasy art piece of like a bunch of like role-playing characters around a campfire, like Lord of the Rings or something. And I was like, what if someone could like own like the Dwarven Barbarian or like the Elven Archer? And like I could change like the expression or like the attire of the character based on how I feel like, at any point of the day or the week, and kind of like play with the community through the art piece. And I started going about, specking this out, and I'm not an artist. So I was like, all right, maybe I'll commission someone to do it for me. And then I was like, you know what, like rather than me do this bad artwork myself, like let me like just work with the artists I'm collecting and have them come in and do a piece. And so that was like what the first piece was, the first supper It was a collaboration of 13 of artists at the time, and they all came together and contributed a layer, a character sitting at this like table, which was a remix of Da Vinci's Last Supper. And so yeah, it was kind of a slow moving, slow rolling thing that finally came to fruition after 6 months.
Well, that was such an epic piece to launch with, because the artists that you got in for that were the artists of the NFT space.
I think that piece was definitely indicative of the time and place at the time, because all of those artists, I mean, they were big at the time, but not anywhere close to how big the space is now. You know, they were just underground NFT artists on Twitter. Many of them, there's a whole story about, you know, I was leasing virtual land in Cryptovoxels, gallery space, and pretty much all of them were leasing land from me at one point. And so it was just like, you know, it was an easy collaboration to do. Nowadays, I don't think you could get all 13 of them to come together in a room. And they're so big, you know, crazy now. But at the time, it was like just a DM conversation. Hey, do you want to try out this crazy idea? Oh, sure. You know, Hackatow. Oh, sure. X copy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, so you were a big land baron in Cryptovoxels.
Yeah. You know, I was buying land and building galleries for my own collections. But like at the time, Cryptovoxels was like, it's a little janky. You'd have like these crazy cool builds, but then there'd be a bunch of like empty parcels around it. So you'd have to like kind of fly around. And there was this cool movement like called the CryptoArt Tour, the CAT. I don't know if you guys remember that, but like Blackbox.art and Puffin had this little art walk where like 30 different galleries were all connected, and you could like teleport from like gallery to gallery and like, you know, explore art. In part, it was because of, you know, the land was, sometimes you walked through like this barren wasteland of like these like blank districts. And so I had this idea where I was like, what if I bought up all the land in one district and made like a themed art district? And there was a district called Gangnam, which at the time, like there was like 2 weeks where it's like empty parcels and no one was buying them. And I remember I was at work one day, I was like at a meeting, but I was like, I had it when they were open. And I was calculating, I was like, hey, if I buy up all this land, I'm going to have like 30 connected parcels. You know, it's like probably like $5,000 worth of time. It's a big investment. Like I hadn't spent that much money at all at that point. But like I thought about it and I was like, all right, let me just go, fuck it, let me just do it. I went in, I bought a bunch of land, and then I started, you know, developing these galleries. But again, I'm not a good developer in terms of like building galleries. Like all my galleries look the same. They're like kind of cubes. So I met a lot of money at the time on Twitter, and he was building galleries and he was available for commissions at the time. And so I was like, hey dude, like, you know, I really love your work. Would you like to, you know, do a commission for a build? And so he ended up building the first gallery, which is called the Rose Nexus. Crazy build, very cyberpunk, very Blade Runner, all these crazy gifts and neon lights and everything. And he actually ended up returning back to the gallery just like every few months to like add things to it, even though I didn't ask him, like, because I left collaborator access for it. And so that really set the tone for the whole district. So the whole district was about like neon zone, nightlife, like kind of crazy Tokyo Gangnam ambiance. And so, yeah, I just began building galleries. I also got Devil from the community, Cryptovoxels community, amazing builder. He built a really cool gallery called the Electric Sheep. Began leasing land. And I was kind of experimenting. I was like, all right, what if I lease not only like the whole parcel, but like just like a floor? And so like I leased the top floor of the Rose Nexus to Kanye Digital. And he like had his art gallery up there for a bit. You know, not a lot of money, you know, $1 to $5 a month leases, just a little proof of concept. But it was just cool to be able to say, hey, I'm like leasing virtual land to people. And that's how I just met a lot of artists in the space. Began hosting art club meetups. So like once a month, you know, people could submit artwork and we'd go in the world and like talk about the art. That was another way to meet the community.
That's awesome. Cryptovoxels was such a hive of growth and activity around that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like the Renaissance period, you know, like Florence, Italy, like in the 1400s. Like that Cryptovoxels was like Florence, Italy in the 2018, 2019.
A lot of money's gallery actually was the moment that it sunk in for me that seeing galleries in a 3D space made me like their art more. I'd watched a lot of Money's work in 2D, you know, just like it's there. But walking around the gallery that he wanted his art displayed in completely changed the game for me, just mentally, in terms of like how big this space could get. I have to say, I haven't been back to Cryptovoxels for a little while now. We should head back in, Luke, and have a look around. We used to go to the WIP meetup quite a lot, and I've got some pretty cool memories from some of those. So yeah, I need to head back in and check it out.
I love that, because like you're absolutely right. Like the art, the environment, you see the artwork totally affects how you take the art in, right? Like take any amazing piece, and if you saw it on the side of the street, all right, some pieces would still stand out, but a lot of the pieces you might even pass by and like, oh, that's interesting. But when you go to a museum and you see it as, you know, it's presented on a pedestal and all these things around, like it affects how you see it. So when you see a piece like A Lot of Money, it's like you're kind of seeing a little bit more of his brain and how he wants you to experience it. So that's a great point.
Oh man, he puts so much thought into that. We all miss him, obviously. Yeah, super cool. So does Async itself have a piece of voxel land, and did you build something specific to Async?
Yeah, so our Chief Creative Officer, No Shot, Nate, also a Metaverse native, was making the Nowhere shoes. He built our gallery in Cryptovoxels. It's in Gangnam. It's on the edge. It's a really big parcel. It's 2 parcels actually combined. For a while, I'd say about like 6 months, we were doing like walkthroughs and events in there. I will say that as much as I love Cryptovoxels, it has a place in my heart. It just hasn't scaled the way it's been several years now, and it's still kind of a janky experience. I will still promote Cryptovoxels and love the project, but I have to say I'm a little disappointed with how it's developed in the years. So we've been exploring other galleries. We do have a gallery in Decentraland, which is a little bit higher fidelity. Still has some challenges there. But most recently, we announced a partnership with Mona Gallery. Mona Gallery is like a 3D art platform where like 3D builders can like build their own structures completely in 3D with like Unity and offer those to display NFTs out of. And I'd say it's kind of like a hybrid because it's not as easy to build as Cryptovoxels. Like Cryptovoxels, anyone can jump in, and it's like Minecraft, you just place the blocks. But it's not quite that easy, but it's higher fidelity. Like it's actually like seamless. It looks like a game. And yet it's a little bit easier to build than Decentraland because Decentraland is also hard to build. So it's like kind of in that sweet spot. So I think that actually might be like the ultimate sweet spot for like metaverses in the next couple of years. Where like let the 3D builders who are already building Unity just like tokenize their projects and do that, as opposed to like super free form but not kind of janky and super hard to build but really high polished quality. It's like kind of that middle ground.
So async, what is ASYNC.ART?
Yeah, so I mean the biggest distinction is this: all the other platforms, revolutionary in their own, and what they let you do is they let you tokenize like a static piece of art. So if you go on Super Rare or like Non-Origin, you're tokenizing like a PNG or a GIF, and that's your piece. The distinction between async and those platforms is that rather than tokenize the static piece of art, what you're tokenizing is essentially a set of instructions for how to generate that artwork. The instructions might be as simple as, hey, take this background piece, take this foreground piece, and compile them together, and that's your final product, final result. And so it's a set of instructions. And those instructions can be complex, such as, hey, take this background piece. Oh, there's 2 different states. To determine which state to use, look at this layer token value. And that'll determine which state to use. Okay, now there's a foreground, there's a character. Oh, for the X position of this character, look at that layer token value. Maybe the current value is -300. Okay, put them at -300 pixels. And now compile the images together. That's kind of the most basic idea. But it allows the creator to assign, like, you can tokenize layers of your work then. You can say, hey, the background, I want this to be a separate layer token. The foreground character, I want that to be a layer token. Oh, the sun in the sky, that's a layer token. And then each layer, you can imbue them with abilities. So the background, I did 5 different versions. I can't decide which one. Let the person who owns the background decide at any given point. Oh, the foreground character is a cowboy, riding across the desert. Well, I'm going to let a collector inhabit that cowboy and determine how far in the cowboy's path he or she is riding. I like to call it's 21st century art, it's cyberpunk art. So now like when you own a piece of artwork, you're actually becoming part of the artwork yourself, and you're expressing yourself through it and how you control it and when you control it.
So I've got a question here from one of our community, which I think fits in here. It's from Thunder, and he says, I'm curious about how dynamic the infrastructure could be. At the moment, async is predetermined, meaning the layers are complete prior to minting, and changes are simply a state change to another bit of data contained in the layer token. Is there a future where async masters could add additional layers after the fact? And if it does, how would this sort of thing play out for creators and owners?
Yeah, so we've talked about this a lot. It's a great question. We deliberately chose early on, like, okay, for now, the art pieces, the artist has to bring all the art materials up front at mid-time. That way, collectors, when you buy into a piece, you know what to expect. You kind of know like the range of what's possible, because it's already complex of a concept to understand already. And if you go in there and like the piece has like some like crazy different artwork that you didn't even expect, it could be a jolting and a little bit, our collectors want to kind of know what they're getting into. That being said, we do talk about what we call like wildcard layers all the time. And these would be layers where like, maybe another artist could buy into and then kind of collaborate by adding artwork post mint time. It's something that we will introduce at some point, but we just want to make sure that everyone completely understands the core concepts before like we make it more complicated. I would say that's been one of our kind of mistakes or challenges in the past that we've done, is sometimes move too quickly. We're like, okay, we got this piece, let's go this next piece. And then people are still like, I don't get how the first part works.
Can't move too quickly because otherwise people get left behind and they don't understand what's happening. So programmable, so it's you can have multiple layers, and it's down to the owners what they show in each layer, the owner of that particular layer.
And there's another aspect where in that set of instructions, sometimes the instructions are saying, hey, this layer owner can determine this layer state. But sometimes you could be like, this layer state is determined by the time, the UTC timestamp. So rather than let a human decide background, day or night, look at the timestamp for the California West Coast time. And between these 2 hours, show the day state. Between these other hours, show the night state. And that's how we have a layer that when you compile the piece with the instructions, you get day during the day and night at night. And so that's where the programmable aspect comes into play.
Okay, nice. So you bring in external variables that you refer to. So that makes me think of Ethboy, Trevor Jones, and A Lot of Money. What did they refer to outside of the platform?
Yeah, so that piece takes in the current price of ETH. It also takes the average gas price of a transaction. So Ethboy, if the price of ETH has gone up over like 10% or something, like the background slowly rises up. If the price of ETH goes down, the price of ETH goes down. The color of Vitalik's outfit will be more green the lower that gas fees are, and it'll turn more towards red the higher gas fees are for the last 24 hours. Then it gets crazy. There's a butterfly. The butterfly is based off of the Bitcoin price. So if Bitcoin is going up, the butterfly is going up, and then it flutters around in like a random position. So there's those three elements that it's looking at. The fourth element, which I think is the coolest, there's only one layer that can actually affect it by human, and that's the accessories layer. You could put basically glasses on, Vitalik, you put alien eyes, whatever you want. There's like 20 different states. They gifted that layer to Vitalik.eth, his address. So if you're looking at Ethboy, it hasn't changed yet in this way, but if you're looking at Ethboy and you see the glasses appear or the whatever appear, Vitalik himself actually came in and changed it. We tried tweeting at him and it was like, hey, Vitalik, we got this layer. I think that he's so busy that he probably gets 1,000 DMs a day. But yeah, so it's kind of a cool piece. And I think it's really underutilized. As more celebrities get into the space, I would love to see artists be like, hey, Michael Jordan, here's like a layer. And now there's a piece in your wall that if it changes, it's like Jordan came in and like changed it, himself. Like it's just such a cool, again, 21st century concept.
In terms of like permissions, like so is it curated in the sense that you're inviting artists on to use this technology and to sort of create pieces, or can any artist use these layers? Like what's the way that you onboard people onto the platform?
Yeah, so anyone can go to canvas.async.art. It's a create button on our website, and they can just use the tool to try it out. If they do want to mint on it, though, we do vet. We want to make sure that the art is legitimate and that you are who you represent yourself to be. But beyond that, we don't vet on like how big of an artist you are. Like, we don't look at like, are you gallery represented or do you have 100,000 followers or more? Like, because we do want to make this accessible for as many people as possible.
That sounds amazing. That's pretty much totally accessible. And I think that what's so great is that people probably feel like they've got an idea and they want to try out something that's got more utility or more dynamism, and can come to the platform and actually experience it pretty quickly and get an idea and like get that sort of moment of excitement where like, oh, I think this is actually going to work, without having to, write emails and say, hey, this is me, check out my accessibility is a great thing to have, I think, given that there are so many people in this space now and it's only getting bigger.
Do they need any sort of programming skills to be able to do that?
No. So the whole goal of Canvas, Async Canvas, is that you shouldn't need to know how to program. Like if you look at like Rarible and OpenSea, who's like completely open, you got to be a little bit careful because there are scams and fraudsters. So but yeah, it's trying to meet that fine line of like letting everyone in who's legit.
Yeah, especially as now it's getting really, really busy, the space. There's more than just this to Async.ART, isn't it? There's, as I understand it, there's two more sort of aspects of it. There's blueprints and then there's music. Could you cover blueprints first?
Yeah, so let me cover music real quick because music was the one that was like happened next. So 2020, we did visual art. 2021, beginning, we did music, which was the same concept as visual, but it also added audio. So you still have a visual cover, but you'd have an audio track. And so as the piece changed, each state would have a stem associated with it. So you could have like a piece where like maybe like the lyrics in one case, like the lyrics changed and there's like 3 different lyrics. So you could basically own the vocal person and determine what they're singing about. So there's an early piece called Leaving by HMLTD, UK pop band, and it was about a love triangle. And so you could basically change the lyrics to see like which parts they're singing about. And then the cover would change to reflect the song. So pretty cool. So async music was for 2021. We didn't quite bring that into Canvas. Those are all custom pieces still. And we're still kind of, seeing where to take that because while really cool and innovative, it's definitely more work for musicians to make a piece there. So we're still evaluating like, okay, what's the best way to present this? But then Blueprints, which we launched at the end of last year, So about 4 months ago, you build that in Canvas. And what you do is you build an async layer piece exactly the same way as you would normally. But rather than tokenize and sell the layers, you allow people to buy a unique one-of-one generated edition from within the possible combinations. That cowboy example I gave, maybe there's like 5 different backgrounds, 5 different cowboy types, 5 different hats. When you buy an edition, you're buying a random generated, oh, okay, this background A, cowboy B, hat C. And another person buys an edition, background A, cowboy D, hat C, and so forth. And so everyone gets a unique edition from within the possible range. And some of these blueprints have like, 120 million, crazy number of combinations. And the creator can set the number of editions. They can say, hey, this is 1,000 editions. Or in some cases, the creator says, hey, there's only 10 editions. It's a small set. And so that's what you build the same piece, but you're basically tokenizing different ways.
So it's almost like an out-of-the-box artistic PFP creation machine.
It is. So you could basically rebuild your own Bored Ape Club if you wanted with it. You could build anything. It's no code required necessarily. You just need the assets. And PFPs are, Xcopy did his PFP with it, Grifters. But we're seeing a lot of just like cool, like landscape paintings, portrait paintings. Like it's just kind of a new way to think of like a quantum painting. Like here's a painting with like 10 million different possibilities. And when people buy an edition, they're like collapsing it into a single possibility at that moment.
As a creator, and you say if there's like 1 million variations and you're only selling 1,000, can you pre-select which 1,000 are going to be done, or does it have to be completely random?
You can't choose which ones. You can choose the percentages, though, of each trait. So you can skew the look of it. You can be like, hey, for 50% of them, you get the day state. 25% of them, you get the night state. 10% of them, you get the lightning state. And 5%, you get like the void. Maybe it's like all darkness or something. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. So you could skew it that way. We also introduced the concept of legendaries. So that's what a legendary is, a guaranteed pull. So let's say I have 1,000 possibilities and I have like 5 legendaries. These are like MP4s, so they're completely animated without audio. And these are guaranteed to be pulled at least some point in that 1,000. And that's where you can put your special cases. Like, okay, maybe there's a version where, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like maybe there's like 500 cowboys like wrestling a whole cattle. I'm watching a lot of Westerns. That's why I'm using this cowboy analogy a lot. But that's where the legendaries come in. You could do that.
Okay, and so you create them as a separate sort of set of assets, which you say, okay, there's only going to be X amount, but include them in the mix. That's awesome. I could definitely see the attraction to a creator to want to play with these tools, because it's going to give you so many options and so much scope for creativity.
Yeah, I think like a gerbil blueprint would be pretty neat.
Yeah, we've been thinking about it, and we haven't quite got the idea down yet. It's got to be right. Everyone's sending your suggestions. What gerbil blueprint do you want to see? Thinking about the music again, I would really like you to pitch async music to my favorite New York-based collaborative YouTube band. Shout out to Scary Pockets and Pomplamoose. Kind of a lot of crossover there.
Oh, I love Pomplamoose. Yeah, I was obsessed with them for a while.
We support them on Patreon, and I'm hoping to approach them and to do a gerbil at one point, but maybe we need to get them to do an async music thing. So yeah, how would you sell it to them? What could they do? Because they're a creative bunch.
I give a little bit of a little alpha drop. We're adding audio capabilities to blueprints. So I would pitch them instead on say, hey, do an audio blueprint. They do a lot of cover songs. Audio blueprints in general are a great way to build a community, because you can have a wider range of additions than just like, let's say you have like 5 layers. Rather than just have five collectors, you could have like 1,000 collectors and offer them at a lower price point. So it's much more accessible. So I would say, hey, come in, do an audio blueprint. Maybe your next song is an audio blueprint. I know they're super experimental. They have all these different sound effects. Well, rather than choose which one, just do everything you want and let the collection be a way to explore all the possibilities. Oh, should we do like this piano track or that one? Well, do both. And then as you flesh it out, each possibility will be like expressed as an addition. And if you have a version you really, really like, make that as a legendary. Be like, hey, this is like Pomplamoose's pick. Legendary number 1. Okay, so one person will get that. And that's how you can express what you wanted. But let the community come around it. As far as I know, I don't think they've done an NFT project yet. So this would be a great way they come in and they build their community from the get-go. Like I see creators who come into the Web3 space with a community, you don't want to start with like a single one of one. What you want to do is you want to have a big set that your entire community can get into, and kind of that's your foundation, because then you can start like airdropping them things and getting them all in at once, as opposed to you could do a one of one with like, whatever. Then it goes to some big collector who's already in the Web3 space, and your fans are like, hey, like how do I participate? So that's kind of, it's like a long elevator pitch, like a 50-story elevator pitch.
That's a great idea. It's inclusive to have a big collection that everyone can take part in, and at a low price point, because then everyone can get a piece of the action, and you have so much more variation in the track that comes out at the end as well. People are going to have all sorts of variations of this one song that they've put together.
There's still one of one, which is a lot more fun than saying, hey, here's 1,000 or 10,000 editions of the same piece. It's like, all right, that's cool, but I still want to be special within that community,
Yeah, great pitch. I'm going to send this to them. Is it easy to whitelist within that? So if you have like 100 people, 200 people who you absolutely want to get in, can you whitelist them and let them go first? Sort of thing?
Definitely. You just collect their ETH addresses in the tool. There's a part where you just paste in a comma separate value list of the addresses, and then you can specify how long the whitelist is open, like a day, 1 week, and those people are able to buy one guaranteed before the public sale.
Would you be able to sell the right to have one person listen to it for the first time? That would be pretty cool.
That would be cool. Like a I think you can put whatever you want in the description. You could say that, yeah, the holder of this gets access to it. Sign a message if you're the holder and prove that you own it. And then, yeah, we'll let you listen to it beforehand. That would be cool. It could be the legendary. Like if you pull the legendary, you get access to it.
Yeah, we all know Pomplamoose is massive, but I think if you expand that out to the most popular musicians in the world, there'd be a huge market to listen to the first track of just cut from the studio. Would be a cool experience.
Well, that's why I'm so bullish on those metaverse spaces, because the ones we launched with Mona, they're open to the public now, but in like a month from now, they're going to start being token gated to if you hold an edition from that Blueprint collection. So like the Grifters bar from Xcopy, anyone can go visit and hang out, but at some point it'll be in the next month, you can only go there if you have a grifter. And so that's going to be exactly what you're saying. Like a musician can be like, hey, I'm going to play my new song in my virtual, concert hall. And like, you got to have one of the editions of their set to go listen to it.
It's almost like a next phase of NFTs, isn't it? Everyone distributes their NFTs to their communities, and then comes all the rewards from being in that community.
Yeah, because there's no way to get rewarded for engaging with the creator early on. Like, I guess you get the clout of being like, oh, I was at their first concert, or I was into them before they were cool. But there's no way to like really get that value up, because there's value to it. If you actually interact with an artist early on, that's so much more valuable than doing it later. And so how do you like return some of that value back to people who are doing that?
Right. This has been super interesting conversation so far. It's not where I was expecting it to go. So yeah, brilliant. Have you noticed a change in NFT culture since you've joined the space?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. It's grown, for one thing. It's gone mainstream. And I think that's interesting, but it's surprising for many of us and how fast it happened. I think a lot of us, like in 2019, 2018, were like, oh, NFTs are going to go mainstream someday. Because remember, I don't know, back in the day, there was like these like Twitter polls, like, oh, what should we rebrand NFTs to be? Rare art, rare crypto art, et cetera. And I'm like, no, NFTs just ended up being the thing. And so now it's here. But I think now, at least for some of us, I know for sure, like we're reminded of like, oh, this is why we got into NFTs in the first place, because we don't like the mainstream stuff. We don't like the gatekeeping and like arbitrary power holders who have the say over things. And now they're here, and now we're like, okay, go away. We don't want mainstream anymore. So I'll say that it's grown really fast and really suddenly. So it's been, definitely some growing pains. I don't know. It's a bit fragmented. NFT's gotten a little bit tribal. There was a time when every week the Cryptovoxel community would put on an event, and everyone in NFTs would go to that event. Now it's like, in part because the space is so big, but now there's like things going on that like people don't even know or follow because it's just too big to follow. But also it's gotten tribal, like, oh, my collection that I bought into is more valuable than yours. My platform that I support is more valuable than yours. And so I guess it's good for the space as a whole and how big it's gotten, but it's gotten a little bit less community as a whole in my sense.
It's so reminiscent of the early blockchain space generally. Like when Bitcoin first started, and I remember when Litecoin was announced, and I was like properly angry I was like, well, there is only Bitcoin. Like, you can't create something new. And I remember very clearly, then I got hold of some Litecoin and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm totally going down this rabbit hole and I'm going to buy every shitcoin for the next 10 years that comes out.
Get your Litecoin out of my subreddit.
And it was very tribal back then. Maybe I'm a bit wrong to do this, but there is a feeling of this sort of 2017 ICO era with the PFP thing, in the sense that the barrier to entry to produce a token got lower and lower and lower until it was sort of like clicking a button. So the process of producing a PFP community is the hard bit, right? You have to sort of, build utility, bring people, and the actually producing the artwork isn't. And I don't know. I feel like when the barrier to entry gets very, very low, then you end up in a situation where you actually have to curate quite heavily to get anywhere near quality. And to some degree, I'm a bit, I hate to use the word inevitable, but there is a certain inevitability, and we're seeing it play out again in the NFT space. And I guess we end up at quality in the end. Like the market finds its way, and it just takes time to sort of unravel.
I think, yeah, that's a good point. It's a way in blockchain, like blockchains became easier to deploy. ICO projects on those blockchains became easier to deploy. Now PFPs are really easy to deploy. It kind of goes back even to like publishing, right? Like back in the day, publishing books or movies or content used to be really, really high barrier. And now we're at the point where like everyone can like publish a video or publish that. And it does mean there's a lot of crap. But it also means that like the average level of like the peak quality has gone up. Like TikTok, now it's like literally anyone can download an app, record a video, and make a TikTok. But yet the highest quality videos we can watch are like the best it's ever been. Like I wouldn't want to be like a movie critic like in the 40s or 50s, because like it's very limited. Like there are some good movies out there, sure, but like the movies now, the peak ones are so good. The music now, like the peak ones are so good.
You end up with a much richer landscape.
Yeah, you do end up, your range is higher. Like maybe like when you have like that barrier entry, it's a closed band, but like the quality's up here. But as you make the barrier lower, you get a lot more crap, but then your peak ranges are much higher. And like some of the content, some of the PFPs are just really innovative and cool.
How do you see async developing over the next months and years?
Yeah, so I mean, just trying to make the tool, the creation platform, as powerful as possible. We do have a section where like notable. So like we do try to curate the higher quality pieces or the things that we think are interesting. The more people that can use the tool, the more innovative ideas come in. Because I do see NFTs as a medium. I see them not just as a way to sell art. I see them as a way, like it's like watercolor, oil paintings, NFTs. Like NFTs are like another way to make art. And so the more people who come in and use that, the more ideas come out of it. So like that's why we're always just trying to like bring those ideas into the creation platform. Like, oh, that artist really wants to do that with this. Let's bring that back in the platform so other artists can do that. And yeah, just kind of grow the tool, get more people into it. In terms of vision, just get more creators to do it, to use it. I think it's also the kind of the anti-venom to a lot of there's a lot of skepticism around NFTs from like actual creators who would benefit from the tech. And I think the biggest way we can fight that, the anti-venom for that, is just to let really quality projects get made. Because yeah, anyone who's like down on PFPs, it's like you're not looking at the cool art that's being made. Yeah, of course, if you look at whatever Bored Ape Yacht Club derivative of the week there is, then you're going to think it's all scams. But that's like looking at email tech in the 90s and be like, oh, it's all like scam emails. It's like, no, look at like the companies like able to communicate and people are able to collaborate across oceans now instantly. And so that's what, by building the creation platform, really fleshing it out, we're hoping to like, okay, let's elevate what people see NFTs as.
Yeah, that's a great point. I totally understand, like when I speak to someone from the outside who's hopelessly overexcited about NFTs, I completely understand their viewpoint. And then I speak to someone who's completely skeptical about it, and I totally understand their viewpoint as well, which one goes to show how early we are, of course, but also the concepts here. And again, it's like blockchains in general, like it does take a little bit of time to scratch the surface and sort of get down into it. And, this whole like right click save JPEG thing, which is again, sort of, I wouldn't say it's legitimate, but what it's doing is it's kind of simplifying it in a way that means people don't need to dig any deeper. I think as soon as you do dig deeper with the right platform and the right art, which I would say that your platform is, then you get this kind of aha moment, right? Which is pretty hard when you go to somewhere like OpenSea and just like, show me something cool. And you have this literally sea of of stuff. And for me, your platform will be somewhere that I would sort of, bring people to be like, this is what you can do kind of thing. And if they are creative, then the creative juices will just get going anyway, I think.
Yeah.
So what are you most excited about for the future or in the NFT space?
It's so fast. Every week, it's like different. I would say, okay, for this year, I really want to see the Metaverse. Let's get back into the Metaverse. Because like you guys mentioned, like 2019, I was in Cryptovoxels like every week. I was like running around. And for the past year or so, I haven't been really in the Metaverse spaces that much, like maybe occasionally like an event here or there. But I want to get back to that. I want to have the NFT community get back into the Metaverse stuff. And also hopefully we can like, drive it. We don't want, Meta and companies like that to like drive what the Metaverse is, because it's going to be like, it just be more advertising. Like this is our chance to like, drive the narrative back, control the innovation and really drive where the space goes. So, the two platforms I'm looking at, Mona Gallery and On Cyber, those are kind of two like hybrid approaches I described, or like, they're not full on creator like Cryptovoxels, but they're not as hard to build as like, DCL or something. So hoping those two platforms and hopefully others start to take off. I guess that's what I'm most excited about for the short term. And also chains. I've been pretty surprised, and I've been happy with the progress that some of the other chains have made this past year. Tezos, Polygon, some of these, alternative blockchains have made headway. And so, Ethereum's expensive, and I miss the days where I could just like, buy NFTs for a couple bucks. And that's what I've been able to do on Tezos, actually, kind of see how that goes.
All right, cool. I'm definitely with you on getting back to the Metaverse. I always used to see you there every week at the whip floating around. And yeah, I also haven't been in there much this last year at all. What still needs fixing? What's broken?
One first thing for sure is security. I think that the number of artists and collectors who are getting scammed out of their stuff this past year has been pretty bad. It's the sort of thing where it can burn you as an artist or collector. You go into the space and you get ripped off and you lose everything. Like, okay, some people come back, but some people are just gone forever. So we need to fix that. And I think there's some interesting ideas around it, but that needs to be fixed. More ramps, more ways to get money into the space. Like right now, it's just so hard. So many jumps, like get a Coinbase account, apply for that and all that. Like we need more like ways to get your crypto and stay in crypto so people can just like spend it. Like for the Ukraine thing right now, like, some of the people in Ukraine were getting donations, which is good, but then they ran into issues of like, well, how do I use my crypto? Like if we have more people just accepting crypto for payment, like renting a room or buying food, then like we have less of those problems. So fiat, ramps on and off, security, and I'd say try to get back away from some of this tribalism. I see a lot of cartels forming and these platforms and collectors and just kind of tightening up. I just want the NFT space to be back to like where it was in 2019. We're like, at least on the surface, I'm sure there were cartels back then, all that, but at least on the surface, like work together, share. It's not about just flipping, whatever NFT you bought this week. It's not about flipping whatever artist you're trying to promote. Like, really try out everything. I always tell artists, hey, try every platform if you can, not just async, but just try anything, because every platform has its own flavor. And you're doing yourself a disservice if you're just like, oh, here's a platform A, this is what I do, and this is all I'm gonna ever do. Like, no, like it's, dig deeper, look beyond. So that's a kind of a basket of things to fix.
That's great. That's great things to think about. And where can people find you?
Oh, Twitter is where I live for sure. Twitter /Conlan, but then ASYNC.ART, Twitter /ASYNC.ART is also, we're always tweeting things out. There's links to the Discord and the website from there. And then, of course, the website, async.art, is the best way to just jump in.
Awesome. You're going to be in Lisbon next week for the conference.
Yes, I will. I will be doing a talk on actually some of the Cryptovoxel stuff we covered today. It's kind of fun because I'm doing a presentation on early OG Cryptovoxel stuff. And I'm going through my DMs and all that stuff and taking some photos and things. Like, actually, I've never even shown people and putting together a little presentation. So
awesome. Oh, I look forward to that.
Yeah, we'll have to come see you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been super interesting.
Definitely.
And, just good luck with Async going into the future.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Conlan.